right, Shalom. Most High Christ bless. You're tuned in to Biblical Histories. We fall under the umbrella of Israelite Saints of Christ, but we focus more on history on this particular channel. I'm Brother Jacob.
Brother Jeremiah.
And today we're doing, going back to Thanksgiving or Thanksgiving the natives. Because that's what happened. They were thankful for killing the natives. So last week we went into, early history, starting in the 1400s with Columbus coming over and starting with the atrocities that he did with the permission of the Catholic Church, which they gave him permission to do a lot of things. Not just the Catholic Church, but the Protestants also. They came over, did the same thing. So, like, your Protestants would be, let me take a guess. Those people that came to Plymouth Rock. Those same people that killed the natives. That brought smallpox over here and destroyed the natives. Killed them by the thousands. Community after community. Everywhere they go, they bring death. And guess what? Then they're getting you, and not just you, but the natives to celebrate it. So we get into some of that history tonight, but as usual, we're going to open up with Ezekiel 3 and verse 11 and verse 17. After all, this is Biblical Histories. We deal with the Bible, but we also deal with documented history. Ready?
3:17.
3 and 11 first, then 17.
Book of Ezekiel, chapter 3, verse 11. And go, get thee to them of the captivity, unto the children of thy people, and speak unto them, and tell them, thus saith the Lord God, whether they will hear or whether they will forbear.
Right, to them of the captivity. We were sent into captivity again. Go ahead, verse 17.
Verse 17. Son of man, I have made thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore hear the word at my mouth, and give them warning from me.
Right. Give them warning from me. So that's what, not just us. There's many Israelite organizations, many Israelites waking up all over the place, coming together and teaching the same doctrine. That we are the people and we have to repent and keep the commandments. There's other brothers that have different trains of thought. All of us are not exactly on the same page. But that's why Christ got to come, to get us all on the same page. So we can sing that song together. To the law and to the testimony. That's what that song is. So we're not going to be going to many scriptures, but we're going to be doing some reading, some scholarship. I don't know how long this is going to be. We're just going to go through the scholarship that we have. We're going to start out with the book, The Critical Review or Annals of Literature, Volume 57. And we're just going to read it. You're going to page... Let's go down. What page is that?
140.
It's 40.
140, I think. Or 40.
I think it's 140. 1 second. Yeah, 140. It's page 140.
All right. Start at Rivals.
Just do Pope Nicholas right there. Right there.
Okay, I see. All right. Pope Nicholas V and the famous bull by which he granted the unknown world to the Portuguese and Spaniards, expressly permitted and ordered the Christians to reduce all infidels to slavery, an order zealously executed by both the nations.
Right, so both these nations, the Portuguese and the Spaniards, which is the Iberian Peninsula. Little history real quick. So in 1492, the Jews and Moors were ordered out of Spain. 1498, Portugal. So we've done classes on this before. So the black Jews were expelled back into North Africa and to West Africa, where they carried some of us. Some of us they killed, but many of us converted to Christianity, modern Christianity, where they gave us the images of the white man and the doctrine of the white man. So our people fled, but we just kind of like giving you a refresher on last week. So all of this was done at the behest of the Roman Catholic Church and the Pope. It was done with his permission. That's why we came back here. I think we read this last week. I think you can drop that now. We're going to American Negro slavery. That's all we're on about. So remember this, y'all. All of this stuff is being done with the permission of the church. Not just the Roman Catholic Church, but the Protestant churches. And these are the same people that have taught us Christianity. Deacon Raphael got a saying, if he ain't going to treat you right, he ain't going to teach you right either. So they've been teaching us the doctrine of the devil ever since they put us in captivity. Ever since they came in power, they've been teaching us the doctrine of the devil. So American Negro slavery, page 23. Started where it says characteristically.
All right.
Oh, yeah. Right here we're dealing with Puritans. Puritans.
All right.
Okay.
Characteristically, as Puritans, they officially codified the
ambivalence,
thank you, in 1641 as follows. There shall never be any bond slavery, villanage, or captivity amongst us, unless it be lawful captives taken in just wars, and such strangers as willingly sell themselves or are sold to us, and such shall have the liberties and Christian usages which the law of God established in Israel concerning such persons doeth morally require, provided this exempts none from servitude who shall be judged thereto by authority.
So in other words, what they're saying is we can enslave other people, but not ourselves. Not these white Christians. They can't enslave each other. Not enslave. They can have servants, because as we know, that many of them were brought over here in indentured servitude, which is different from the child slavery that they put us under. But go ahead. But what they're talking about, they're talking about the law in Leviticus. We're going to go to it in a minute. But keep going.
Here were the wishes of the General Court as expressed in the Massachusetts Body of Liberties, which is to say that as early as 1641, the Puritan settlers were seeking to guarantee in writing their own liberty without closing off the opportunity of taking it from others whom they identified with the biblical term strangers.
Strangers. They are strangers. What are they talking about? Now, look, see that date, 1641? See, this is right around the time of the first Thanksgiving. Go ahead.
It was under the aegis of this concept that Theophilus, thank you, Eaton, one of the founders of New Haven, seems to have owned Negroes before 1658.
That's New Haven, Connecticut. So he owned Negroes before 1658. Go ahead.
Who were servants forever.
Damn.
Or during his pleasure, according to Leviticus 25, verse 45 and 46.
Go ahead. Just go down to where it say nationality. Then we're going to hit the scripture. At the end of the highlighted stuff. Right there.
Oh, go down. Oh, I got you.
Yeah, from the top of the page down right there.
Of the children of the strangers that do sojourn among you, of them shall ye buy. And of their families, and they shall be your possession. Ye shall take them as an inheritance for your children. They shall be your bondmen forever. But over your brethren, the children of Israel, ye shall not rule one over another with rigor. Apart from this implication that bond slavery was reserved to those not partaking of true religion nor possessing proper nationality.
So let's go to Leviticus 25. It's one of my favorite scriptures. So, there's a lot of confusion when it comes to the word stranger. So, this chapter is what opened up my understanding that we ourselves are called strangers. If you're not on your land, you're not among your tribe, you are a stranger. So when you look at laws dealing with the Levitical priesthood, a stranger that tried to do any of those things, make any of those offerings, a stranger couldn't even approach to the tabernacle. By that means someone of another tribe, because they're the only tribe that's supposed to be dealing with that. So give me verse 35 first.
All right. Book of Leviticus, chapter 25 and verse 35. And if thy brother be waxen poor, and fallen in decay with thee, then thou shalt relieve him. Yea, though he be a stranger or a sojourner, that he may live with thee.
Right, that he may live with thee. So he's outside of what he owns, his land, his property, or whatever. He's a stranger, but he's still your people. He's still your brother. This is talking about the children of Israel. Matter of fact, let's back up. Give me verse 2.
Book of Leviticus, chapter 25 and verse 2. Speak unto the children of Israel.
Hold on. Did it say to the Christians in the future?
Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, when ye come into the land which I give you, then shall the land keep a Sabbath unto the Lord.
So this is not written to Christians. This is written to the children of Israel. Now back to we read 35. Now let's go. Let's go to verse 42.
All right. Book of Leviticus, chapter 25, verse 42.
Because hold on a second. What they did, they took the real Israelites. Now, when they were in Spain and Portugal, amongst those Jews there, they took us and sold us into slavery, forced us to be Christians, and killed us by the sword. And then they're going to take our laws and try to use them for themselves. Now, watch this. Read verse 42.
Verse 42.
This is dealing with the children of Israel. Go ahead.
For they are my servants, which I brought forth out of the land of Egypt. They shall not be sold as bondmen.
Right. And we are the Lord's servants. We're the Lord's servants. Not the Christians. The Israelites are the Lord's servants. Go ahead.
Verse 43. Thou shalt not rule over him with rigor, but shalt fear thy God. Both thy bondmen and thy bondmaids, which thou shalt have, shall be of the heathen that are round about you.
Are these white people? Matter of fact, it don't matter what color they are. These people that are not Israelites, but are calling themselves Christians, are they our brothers? No. We're supposed to be buying them. But because of our disobedience, we're in captivity right now. But how are you going to take our laws and use them against us? Remember, the law says you cannot see a kid in his mother's milk.
Right.
Exactly what they've been doing all along. Go ahead.
Let's start from the top. Verse 44. Both thy bondmen and thy bondmaids, which thou shalt have, shall be of the heathen that are round about you. Of them shall ye buy bondmen and bondmaids.
Right. It's supposed to be them. It's supposed to be the other nations that's calling themselves Christians. They're supposed to be our servants forever. But that's okay. All we got to do is go back to being obedient. Wait on the Lord. Go ahead. Verse 45.
Verse 45. Moreover, of the children of the strangers that do sojourn among you, of them shall ye buy, and of their families that are with you, which they begat in your land, and they shall be your possession.
So this said, moreover, of the children of the strangers that do sojourn among you. Were we sojourning among these Christians? No. They was coming into Africa and Europe and Spain and Portugal and taking us and sending us into captivity. Verse 46.
Verse 46. And ye shall take them as an inheritance for your children after you, to inherit them for a possession. They shall be your bondmen forever. But over your brethren, the children of Israel, ye shall not rule one over another with rigor.
So this is our law. What is it? Like, I don't understand this stuff. You say the law done away with, but you're going to use the laws against us. This is your reason for putting us in chattel slavery and having us from generation to generation. This does not apply to you, period. All right, you can drop this. Let's go back to this book. The stuff they do is unbelievable. You cannot take something that belongs to some. Well, no, they've done that.
Yeah.
But taking something that's holy but belongs to us, and you attribute that to yourself, you got to get punished. You have to. You're taking something for our benefit and using it for yourself. I think that was it for that book right there. So that was American Negro Slavery. Now, in ecclesiastical history, it's a big one right there. Now I love using this book, like I was telling the brothers a minute ago. This book, they use this book to teach you in theology school. But there's so much stuff, I got so much stuff highlighted in there that's contrary to what the scriptures say. I love that book. We're going to go to page 358. And start at the top.
All right. The 15th century, part 1. The external history of the church. Chapter 1. The new subjects that were added to the kingdom of Christ in this century were altogether unworthy of the sublime title, unless we prostitute it by applying it to those who made an external and insincere profession of Christianity. Ferdinand, surnamed the Catholic, by the conquest of Granada in the year 1492.
Hold on. So that's Ferdinand of Spain, who's married to Isabella. Ferdinand and Isabella. The same ones that expelled us from Spain.
Right.
Say you were either going to be put to death, you were going to be converted to Christianity, or they would ship you away from the country. You had to leave the country. Same people. That's why we went over that history. So they took our money and belongings and then used that money to further their enterprise. Come over here and basically take over the world. Not just here. They were going in Africa taking slaves, not just bringing them over here, but carrying them to other parts of the world. The Spanish and the Portuguese carried CDs to India and other parts of the world. But go ahead, 1492.
Entirely overturned the dominion of the Moors, or the Saracens, thank you, in Spain. Some time after this happy revolution, he issued a sentence of banishment against a prejudiced multitude of Jews who to avoid the execution of this severe decree, dissembled their sentiments and feigned an assent to the gospel. And it was well known that to this very day there are both in Spain and Portugal a great number of that dispersed and wretched people who wear the outward mask of Christianity to secure them against the rage of persecution and to advance their worldly interests.
Right, that rage of persecution will be what's called the Inquisition. And we read how that whole thing, really, they allowed it in Spain and Portugal so that they could take the wealth of our people. Go ahead.
The myriads of Saracens that remained in Spain after the dissolution of their government were first solicited by the exhortations and entreaties to embrace the gospel.
Which the gospel is only for Israel, man. These people, like Hebrews 12 says, nobody is profane as Esau. This does not belong to any other people. The gospel is that Israel can be saved by repentance. You good right there. Now jump to the other side to the first attempt.
All right. The first attempt of this pious nature was made by the Portuguese among those Africans who inhabited the kingdom of Congo, and who, with their monarch, were suddenly converted to the Romish faith in 1491.
Yeah, in 1491. So they went into the Congo in 1444. I got a book over here that I haven't read that much of it. But they were in Africa. The Portuguese were in Africa in 1444 and beyond, pushing Christianity and taking slaves. Go ahead.
But what must we think of a conversion effected with such astonishing rapidity?
Mm-hmm.
And of the people who at once, without hesitation, abandoned their inveterate prejudices? Has not such a conversion a ridiculous or rather an effective aspect? After this religious revolution in Africa, Alexander VI gave a rare specimen of papal presumption in dividing America between the Portuguese and the Spaniards.
So, the Americas, what did the Portuguese control? They controlled Brazil. And the Spanish, they controlled the north of South America and Central America and the Carib Islands. They did at first, but then you had the French and the Dutch come in. That's why you have like Haiti, they speak French. The DR, the Dominican Republic, is Spanish. Then you got little small islands where you got like, what is it, Saint Martin and Saint Martin, which one is Dutch and the other is English. You know, and they were fighting wars with each other because of the money coming out of there. But that's what was divided. Go ahead.
But showed at the same time his zeal for the propagation of the gospel.
Yeah.
By the order which he recommended to these two nations, the instruction and conversion of the Americans, both in the Isles and on the continent of that immense region.
So they supposed to be bringing Christianity, the gospel, to the people. We're going to see what gospel they brought. And then you go and sit down with your family and give thanks for it. Go ahead.
In consequence of this exhortation of the pontiff, a great number of Franciscans and Dominicans were sent into those countries to enlighten the darkness of their inhabitants, and the success of their mission is abundantly known. They forced people to accept Christianity or die. That's what they did.
Dominicans, Franciscans. All right, page 418, section 2. And this is another thing. People think that the people over here were what they call them, $5 Indians. People think that they're Moabites, they Mongoloids and all this stuff. Anyway, Watch this. Watch what this says.
Section 2. The Spaniards and the Portuguese, if we may give credit to their historians, exerted themselves with the greatest vigor and success in the propagation of the gospel among the darkened nations.
Among the darkened nations. They was pushing Christianity on the darkened nations. They exerted themselves with greatest vigor and success in the propagation of the gospel, which they're not pushing the gospel. They're pushing the gospel of Satan is what they're doing. You should know them by their fruits. Among the darkened nations. Go ahead.
And it must indeed be allowed that they communicated some notions, such as they were, of the Christian religion to the inhabitants of America, to those parts of Africa where they carried their arms, and to the islands and maritime provinces of Asia, which they reduced under their dominion.
They reduced all these places under their dominion. So one of the places they induced under their dominion would be the Philippines. Yeah, the Philippines. You find people in the Philippines with Spanish names. Remember that African dude we met at camp?
Yeah.
And he had a Spanish name.
Yeah.
But when we, you know what I mean, but the earth is given into the hands of the wicked, we say that those people are, you know, who we call Esau, the Edomites, the so-called white man. But people scoff at us. But it's incredible. But go ahead.
It is also true that considerable numbers of these savage people.
Why everybody got to be savages except them? They the worst. They the worst. And I want y'all to hear this. We're not spouting out hate. We're spouting out truth.
Right.
You ain't never going to hear us say, I hate the so-called white man. You ain't going to hear us say that. Because we understand something. They were created for a reason. And that's to punish us. We both come from the same vessel. We both come out of Isaac and Rebekah. One is good, one is evil. One is punishing the other one. Go ahead.
Who had hitherto lived either under the bondage of the most extravagant superstitions or in a total ignorance of any object of religious worship, embraced at least in outward appearance the doctrines of the gospel.
So why would they embrace the outward appearance of the doctrine? Or the doctrines of the gospel? The same reason in Spain and Portugal. Because they either had to conform to the ways of the Gentile, these Christians, or be put to death by the sword. Like nothing changes with these people. You go all the way back to the Maccabees when the Greeks first came in power. They did the same thing. This man does the same thing over and over and over. Go ahead.
But when we reflect on the methods of conversion.
The methods of conversion, the sword and fire. Either you do this, either you accept Christianity, or you get burnt or put to death by the sword. That's the method of conversion. Go ahead.
Which were employed by the Spanish missionaries among these wretched nations on the barbarous laws and inhuman tortures that were used to force them into the profession of Christianity.
Oh, so barbarous laws and inhuman tortures were used to force them into professing Christianity. But somehow, you black Hebrew Israelites, you're a cult. When were we killing people by the sword telling them they had to be an Israelite? Or that they could even be an Israelite? Show me that history. We weren't doing that. If you was on our land, you had to keep our laws. Our land, you keep our laws. We ain't going the world over telling people, oh, you got to convert. You got to be one of us. We didn't do that. You're not going to read that. All right, let's jump over to the next other side where it says the many. Yeah.
All right. The many histories and relations which mention the labors. What's that? Perils?
Yeah,
perils, yeah. And exploits of that prodigious multitude of
Jesuits. Hold on. Labors, perils, and exploits of that prodigious multitude of Jesuits. So these Jesuits, which were sent out over the world to convert people to the gospel, they're doing all kinds of wicked stuff. But that's no surprise. Look at who they are. Go ahead.
Who were employed in the conversion of the African, American, and Indian infidels abundantly show with what fidelity and zeal the members of this society executed the orders of the successful pontiffs.
Right, they doing the work of the devil, going over the compass of the earth. So it says the African, because they went into Africa, converting people to Christianity. That's why they over there in madness now. Got white Jesus in Africa. American, which is this side of the earth. And then Indian, that's talking about East India. You can go over there and find people with white man Jesus on the wall. We saw that when we were looking at the CDs. Yeah, some CDs are in Islam, some believe in Vishnu, and then some had white man Jesus on the wall. All right, that's it right there. That's it for
ecclesiastical history.
Yeah, the ecclesiastical history, man. You just could never in a million years make this stuff up, man. So now we're gonna come to this side of the earth. Capitalism and slavery. Page 3.
All right.
You know, y'all should pick up on something. A lot of these books that we go to, they're going to keep saying the same thing. It all starts with them getting permission of the church. It's that simple. But everybody think that the church can do no wrong, that is right. All right. You can start from the top.
The Origin of Negro Slavery, page 3.
Mm-hmm.
When in 1492, Columbus, representing the Spanish monarchy, discovered the New World.
Damn, stop. How do you discover something that people already live in there and got communities and society? How do you discover it? So he's the first white man to come over here and find it. How he discovered? Okay. So he came to the New World and he found land and people over here. Discovery. Go ahead, bro.
He set in train the long and bitter international rivalry over colonial possessions, for which after 4.5 centuries, no solution has yet been found.
Mm-hmm.
Portugal, which had initiated the movement of international expansion, claimed the new territories on the ground that they fell within the scope of a papal bull in 1455, authorizing her to reduce to servitude all infidel peoples.
We read that. We read that in the annals of literature. All right. Page 7. So funny. This is how we so years ago, Elder, he told us how to find scholarship. You get a primary source or secondary source. And then off of those sources, you can find other sources. And that's what I did. That's why I got a lot of books. Because through them books, you find other sources. So page 7, where it says slavery in the Caribbean.
Right. Slavery in the Caribbean has been too narrowly identified with the Negro. A racial twist has thereby been given to what is basically an economic phenomenon.
So, I need to look it up. One of the books I got, it tells you that they got permission. They asked for permission in 1505 from the Pope to be able to go into Africa and get slaves and then start bringing them over to the Caribbean. They ain't doing nothing without permission. So that's why I was in the Caribbean first. Go ahead.
Slavery was not born of racism. Rather, racism was the consequence of slavery. Unfree labor in the New World was brown, white, black, and yellow, Catholic, Protestant, and pagan.
That ain't slavery. That's so the natives were made slaves, and then we were made slaves. But this yellow and Catholic Protestant, no, they were not slaves. They were indentured servants. Indentured servants had written contracts for a period of time. Go ahead.
The first instance of slave trading and slave labor developed in the New World involved racially, not the Negro, but the Indian.
But the Indians, so they enslaved the natives too. They started on the other side enslaving us. Then when they got here, they put the natives in slavery too. But that's in the same book, right where we just read out of in the Annals of Literature, that they had put. Well, we did in the last class. They put the natives into groups and made them slaves. Go ahead.
The Indians rapidly succumbed to the excessive labor demand of them, the insufficient diet, and the white man's diseases.
Right, the white man's diseases. Remember that. So you had over on that side of it. I mean, look, they gonna have some. They carry some diseases. So you had the Black Plague over there. You know, you had a couple things that was killing millions of people. And then they brought that on this side where they never had that. And it was decimating people. And the main thing was smallpox. We're going to get into that too. That was another gift that they gave. And they were thankful because it killed the natives and not them. All right, now page 5. Where it says odious.
Okay. Odious resource. Though it might be, as Merville called it, slavery was an economic institution of the first importance. It had been the basis of Greek economy.
Greek economy. Guess who put us in slavery? The Greeks. That's why there's neither Jew nor Greek, because they put us in slavery. Go ahead.
And had built up the Roman Empire.
And the Romans, the same people that put us in slavery on this side of the earth. Go ahead.
In modern times, it provided the sugar for the tea and the coffee cups of the Western world.
So it's been the basis of their economies. Every time they've been in power, they've had us as slaves. Go ahead.
It produced the cotton to serve as a base for modern capitalism.
Oh my God. Go ahead.
It made the American South and the Caribbean islands.
It made it. It made the American South and the Caribbean islands. It made them. Go ahead.
Seen in historical perspective, it forms a part of that general picture of the harsh treatment of the underprivileged classes, the unsympathetic poor laws and severe feudal laws, and the indifference with which the rising capitalist class was beginning to reckon prosperity in terms of pounds.
Okay, you good. Now go to page 8. So basically, the economy of this country was built off of slave labor, off of free labor. You know, there was a rivalry between the North and the South because they were getting so much free labor. They were ahead of the North. It was because they was getting that free labor. Now, page 8 where it says the visitor. Oh, my goodness. So remember, we read about how the Jesuits, their methods of conversion. Now, this is going to talk briefly about Haute, an Indian chief. Go ahead, read this. Go ahead, read that.
The visitor, a Ciudad Trujillo, capital of the Dominican Republic, the present-day name of half of the islands formerly called Hispaniola, will see a statue of Columbus with the figure of an Indian woman gracefully riding. So reads the caption. the name of the discoverer.
You the discoverer, and there was people there that you raped, robbed, and murdered. You discovered it. Go ahead.
The story is told, on the other hand, of the Indian chieftain,
Haute.
who doomed to die for resisting the invaders, staunchly refused to accept the Christian faith as the gateway to salvation when he learned that his executioners, too, hoped to get to heaven.
So, when he learned that they hoped to get to heaven, he refused to accept the Christian faith. Go ahead.
It is far more probable that Halte, rather than the anonymous woman, represented contemporary Indian opinion of their new overlord.
So here's what happened with Halte. Halte is famous because they asked him would he convert. They were about to set him on fire. And they asked him would he convert to being a Christian. And he asked them, when you go to heaven, he said, if I go to heaven, will y'all be there? And they said, yeah. And he said, well, I'd rather go to hell than to be around y'all. That's what he's famous for. He would rather go to hell than be around them. Go ahead, read that, the rest of the highlight, that little bit.
All right. England and France and their colonies followed the Spanish practice of enslavement of the Indians.
That's right. So not only did the Spanish and the Portuguese do it, the English and the French did. That's why you got Haiti. Now, page 9, where it says the immediate successor. I think it's down at the bottom.
All right. The immediate successor of the Indian, however, was not the Negro, but the poor white.
Mm-hmm.
These white servants included a variety of types. Some were indentured servants, so called because before departure from the homeland,
right. So before they got on the ships to come over here, go ahead.
They had signed a contract.
Did we sign a contract? Right. We got put on auction blocks, like the scripture said, and was sold to our enemies for bondmen and bondwomen. Go ahead.
Indented by law, binding them to service for a stipulated time.
For a stipulated time. For a time. Go ahead.
In return for their passage.
In return for their trip over here, being carried over here. So they had to do probably 7 years. Or 6 years, and the 7th they go free. But they want, I can't stand it when they try to compare themselves to us. You can't. We were slaves for life. Our forefathers were slaves for life. The children would be born into slavery for life. You can't compare that to indentured servitude. Stop with the lies. But these same people, they celebrate Thanksgiving, and you follow right behind them doing it. Follow right behind these same people and their pagan practices. Go ahead.
Still, others, known as redemptioners, arranged with the captain of the ship to pay for their passage on arrival or within a specified time thereafter. If they did not, they were sold by the captain to the highest bidder. Others were convicts sent out by the deliberate policy of their home government to serve for a specified period.
A specified period. So y'all can stop with the, everybody was slaves. The daggone servants. And they did not put each other into bond servitude. That was for the strangers among them. I don't know how they became the holy people, man. They wicked. My goodness. And it's so funny how all this stuff gets written down. I might want to save this. I'm going to save that. I'm going to save that right there. Because this evidently this class ain't going to be long. But I'm going to save that for the very end right there. Let's go to the indigenous people and indigenous people's history of the United States. This is written by Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz. And actually, she's an Edomite. Her mother was a native. You know how everybody thinks that it's the maternal line of who you are, but it's all actuality it's the paternal.
Right.
So page 37. I want you to read the highlighted stuff on 37. Let's read that first.
All right. Page 37. An Indigenous Peoples History of the United States. Historian David Standard, An American Holocaust, adds the caveat that the same road led straight through the heart of America. The ideology of white supremacy was paramount in neutralizing the class antagonisms of the landless against the landed, and distributing confiscated lands and properties.
Hold on. So this is going back to the other side of the world. So the ideology of white supremacy was paramount. So it started over there. Once they came into power, once they took over militarily, there's your white supremacy. That's when it started. Was paramount in neutralizing the class antagonisms of the landless against the landed and distributing confiscated lands. Go ahead.
And properties of Moors and Jews in Iberia.
And Iberia is Spain and Portugal. Go ahead.
Of the Irish in Ulster. And of the Native American and African peoples.
So they took. Man, we gotta hit the script real quick. John 10:10. It's one of Raphael's favorite scriptures. Be talking to him on the phone. Yeah, but John 10:10. It's we're gonna hit another verse in there too. But it's so funny that this is what these people do. Yeah, read 10 and 10.
Book of St. John, chapter 10 and verse 10. The thief cometh not, but for to steal, and to kill, and to destroy.
That's exactly what they did and still doing. Was that it for that verse?
No.
Go ahead.
I am come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly.
That's why Christ came. The thief doing the same thing. The thief at that time, who was it? It was the Romans. It had just been the Greeks, and then it was the Romans. Now jump up to verse, give me verse 4 and 5.
Verse 4.
This is talking about Christ. But we've been following our, that's why people say we got Stockholm Syndrome, because the people that kidnapped us, that stole us, that abused us, they're the ones that we follow wholeheartedly. Go ahead.
Verse 4. And when he putteth forth his own sheep, he goeth before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice.
Right. The sheep follow him because they know his voice. That's why we waking up today. That's why we waking up today. Go ahead.
And a stranger will they not follow.
We ain't supposed to be following this stranger that came and killed, steal, and destroyed us. They stole us, they kill us, and they destroy us. Go ahead.
But will flee from him, for they know not the voice of the strangers.
So, we're in captivity to them. The Lord put that upon us. But, following their voice, we're not supposed to be doing the things that they do. Don't partake in their sins like Thanksgiving. They celebrating what they have done to God's chosen people. They're going to pay for that. All right, now back to the book. Should be page 38, where it says the English government.
All right. Back to an Indigenous Peoples History of the United States, page 38. The English government paid bounties for the Irish heads.
So scalping did not start over here. It started on the other side of the world with the so-called white man. Go ahead.
Later, only the scalps or ears were required.
Right. Go ahead.
A century later, in North America, Indian heads and scalps were brought in for bounty in the same manner.
See, remember I was saying when I was a child, I thought the Indians was going around scalping folks. You know, they was only doing it because so-called white man had done that to them. Now, page 39, where it says during.
All right. Page 39. During the mid-19th century, influenced by social Darwinism.
Social Darwinism. He's the one that came up with the theory of evolution, the dumbest crap ever. Go ahead.
Some English scientists peddled the theory that the Irish, and all people of color, had descended from apes.
So hold on. So you ever heard the term Black Irish? See, I notice how they keep saying. That's the second time they said something like this. So those islands used to be inhabited by the Medes, which is dark-skinned people. Everybody was dark except Esau. They eventually took these lands over. So you had, even our people were up there. Our people were there. I got a book, Ancient and Modern Britons, and Israelites were up there. Yeah, that one. Israelites were up there. I got a couple of them. I'm not going to use them. I'm not going into that yet. But our people were there. That's where Arthur the Silurian, so-called the story of King Arthur, that's where they were from. Matter of fact, his forefathers were mentioned by Paul. They were brought to Rome in front of Nero in somewhere between 60 and 64 AD. Pudens and Claudian and them. Those are Arthur's forefathers, his foreparents. And they took them from there. They took them from Britain, and then allowed them to go back after 7 years. But that's why you see little statements like this. Books tell you had some Edomites up there, and then you had some Jakes up there, Jan. Go ahead.
Some English scientists peddled the theory that the Irish, and all people of color, had descended from apes, while the English were descendants of man, who had been created by God in his own image.
Wait a minute. But they don't fit the image of God. Number one, his physical image, which is a dark-skinned man with woolly hair, and then his image is the commandments. That's how he carries himself. That's his image. They don't walk like that. They're completely against that. Go ahead. So how the hell are they made in his image? And they be saying that. When we was in Virginia Beach, the woman kept saying, but we're all made in God's image, not y'all. We are. The Israelites are. Go ahead.
Thus the English were angels.
Wait a minute. Remember, Satan got angels too. Go ahead.
And the Irish and other colonized people were a lower species.
See, there go your racism. There go your racism. When they come into power, there go your racism. Go ahead.
Which today, U.S. Christian identity, white supremacists call mud people.
See, white Christian identity is white supremacy. All right, you can drop that. You can drop that book. White supremacy. Oh, no. That was, go to 64. 64. So let's deal with this term redskin. So these people that give you Thanksgiving, they also gave you the Washington football team now that for many, many, many years was called the Washington Redskins, and they have a picture of a dark-skinned Indian on. Somehow he's a redskin. Well, let's see why they were called Redskins.
All right. Page 64, Redskins. During the Pequot War, Connecticut and Massachusetts colonial officials had offered bounties, initially for the heads of murdered indigenous people, and later for only their scalps.
So, just like we read a second ago, it started with the heads, then it went to just, all you got to bring in is a scalp. You get your money. Go ahead.
Which were more portable in large numbers.
Mm-hmm.
But scalp hunting became routine only in the mid-1670s.
Wait, it became routine in the mid-1670s. Now, when was Thanksgiving? It was like 1630 something, 16. They claim early like 16, somewhere between 1610, 1620, when they actually came together and had the feast. There's more to it than that. But they're doing this. They're scalping people. They're massacring people and giving thanks for it. That's what it's about. But they give you this cockamamie story about them coming together with some people that they hate, and they intended to overcome them from the very beginning. Go ahead, my brother.
Following an incident on the northern frontier of Massachusetts colony, the practice began in earnest in 1697 when settler Hannah Dunstan...
Settler. Just like they're settling over in Jerusalem today. Taking people's land. Go ahead.
Having murdered 10 of her Abenikai captives in a nighttime escape, presented their 10 scalps to the Massachusetts General Assembly and was rewarded with bounties for 2 men, 2 women, and 6 children.
Ooh. Damn, this woman killed 2 men, 2 women, and 6 children and got rewarded. Read that next part.
Although the colonial government in time raised the bounty for adult male scalps, lowered that for adult females, and eliminated that for indigenous children under 10. The age and gender of victims were not easily distinguished by their scalps, nor checked carefully. What is more, the scalp hunter could take the children captive and sell them into slavery.
Damn. He that stealeth a man and selleth him. Go ahead.
These practices erased any remaining distinction between indigenous combatants and non-combatants and introduced a market for indigenous slaves.
So it didn't matter if they were resisting you or not. They still either took them as slaves or they scalped them and got paid money for. The government was paying money for the scalps. And y'all go and celebrate Thanksgiving and sit down and go, oh, I'm going to give thanks for a wicked holiday of your oppressor. And what's worse than any Negro doing it is any Native American or Latino doing it. That's even worse. How you going to celebrate what these people did to you? Go ahead.
Bounties for indigenous scalps were honored even in absence of war. Scalps and indigenous children became means of exchange, currency, and this development may even have created a black market.
So guess what? Deuteronomy 28. 28 and might be 38. So this is what they did to the natives. Not 38, verse. Give me 41.
All right. Book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 41. Thou shalt begat sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity.
Right. Back to the book. They shall go into captivity. So, it said, scalps and indigenous children became means of exchange. Currency, meaning they sold them. And this development may even have created a black market. They were selling them. You can pick up a scalp.
Scalp hunting was not only a profitable privatized enterprise, but also a means to eradicate or subjugate the indigenous population of the Anglo-American Atlantic seaboard.
To eradicate or subjugate. Either get rid of them or take them over. Go ahead.
The settlers gave a name to the mutilated and bloody corpses they left in the wake of scalp hunts. Redskins.
That's where the term redskin come from. It ain't talking about the skin color. I don't know, y'all people, you got to study everything, find out why you doing and saying the things that you do. There's a reason behind it. That's why they call redskins. Shoot, Because you have natives that was as dark as me. There's your term redskin. That's what it comes from. From them scalping them and the blood running over their body. So they call them redskins. Read that last part.
This way of war, forged in the first century of colonization, destroying indigenous villages and fields, killing civilians, ranging, and scalp hunting, became the basis for the wars against the indigenous across the continent into the late 19th century.
So they went across the entire face of the earth on this side over here. Rape, robbing, pillaging, killing them, taking their property. They was giving away land to white people. Giving it away. They would give them land and money to set them up so they could be farmers and produce. Because you can't have a country without an economy. So they was giving it. Then they tell you to pick yourself up by your own bootstraps. Then they package it all up and give thanks to their God, and then you do it with them. Okay, let me see. That's it for that book. There's so much history on this stuff. We would be days trying to do this. So I only picked out certain stuff. Matter of fact, man, let me see it. Because there's something in there. I'm going to go ahead and bring it out. These people, they're known for massacring. They're known for massacring people. I'm not surprised anymore. I used to be surprised when I would read stuff, but not anymore. Like when you understand how someone is, or like what's the saying? If somebody lets you know who they are, believe them. Yeah, we're going to page 137. Just read the highlighted part.
Page 137. By 1861, displaced and captive Cheyennes in Airfois, under the leadership of the great peace seeker Black Kettle, were incarcerated in a U.S. military reservation called Sand Creek.
Sand Creek. You can look this up. It's called the Sand Creek Massacre.
Near Fort Lyon in southeastern Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
They camped under a white flag of truce and had federal permission to hunt buffalo to feed themselves.
So hold on. So they camped under a white flag. White flag. So they're not hostile.
Right.
And they were given permission to hunt buffalo, which later the U.S. hired the buffalo soldiers and had them go and kill them. To kill the buffalo. Wiped them out. Go ahead.
In early 1864, the Colorado territorial governor informed them that they could no longer leave the reservation to hunt. Despite their compliance with the order, on November 29th, 1864, Chivington took 700 Colorado volunteers to the reservation. Without provocation or warning, they attacked, leaving dead 105 women and children and 28 men. Even the federal commissioner of Indian Affairs denounced the action.
So they went and killed over 130 people. 700. They gathered together 700 men to come and kill 130 something people, man. I'm telling you, one day there's gonna be a trumpet blown, and people gonna come that's gonna be on our side, and they're gonna rescue us, and ain't nobody gonna stand up to them. They're not gonna be able to stand, because the Lord gonna get the victory. One day, believe that. Go ahead.
Saying that the people had been butchered in cold blood by troops in the service of the United States. In its 1865 investigation, the Congress Joint Committee on the Conduct of the War recorded testimonies and published a report that documented the aftermath of the killings.
So hold on 1 second. This was the U.S. government that did this. They still doing that to this day. To this day. Remember when everybody was trying to leave the airport in Afghanistan and they dropped a bomb on that house and said that it was ISIS-K terrorists operating out of there, and they killed 3 men and 7 children. They were sitting in the car playing. Dropped the bomb on them. They always doing this stuff. They killed over 1 million people in that in the Iraqi war. They killed over 1 million people. That's all they do. Kill, steal, and destroy. And it's the government. It's the military. And then you go and celebrate Thanksgiving. Thankful for what? Killing the natives? Go ahead, bro.
When Chivington and his volunteers burned teepees and stole horses. Worse, after the smoke had cleared, they had returned and finished off a few survivors.
Hold on. So they did the same thing in Jerusalem. Multiple times. So when the Babylonians took us, they came in and helped them, and they burnt the temple to the ground. Then when the Romans came, when they came back as the Romans, they burnt the temple to the ground, killed 1.1 million of us. They love burning stuff. And our people. And yet, I'm going to say it again, they come up with Thanksgiving, then you take it and you celebrate it with them. Go ahead.
While scalping and mutilating the corpses, women and men.
Why are you mutilating the corpses? Who does that? Go ahead.
Young and old, children, babies. Then they decorated their weapons and caps with body parts.
Who does that?
Fetuses, penises, breasts, and vulvas.
Who does that? These are the people that give you Thanksgiving and you celebrate it. And then when we say don't celebrate it, it's wicked. Oh, no, you tripping. Something wrong with you. We've been doing this. I grew up doing it. So what? You grew up doing it. Now you know, don't do it. And then you pastors, you Christians, why are you celebrating this? What's this got to do with Christ? All of this is wicked and evil. They celebrating their victory over your daggone people. Massacring and persecuting your people, and you celebrate it and make excuses to keep it. But you won't keep none of God's days. Was that it?
And in the words of Acoma, poet Simon Ortiz, stuck them on their hats to dry, their fingers greasy and slick.
Is that it?
Yes.
I can't take no more of that. He's the wickedest man to ever walk the face of the earth, and y'all follow him and think everything that he teach you is gold. It's not. Open veins of Latin America. We're just going to hit one part of it. It's so much stuff in here. But we're just going to hit one part of this. Again, something they did with the permission of the church. Page 47. Then after this, we're going to Plymouth Rock.
Start at Taurus? Or?
Yeah, tourist. Page 47 in tourist.
All right. Taurus loved to photograph Altiplano, right?
Mm-hmm.
Altiplano natives in their native costumes, unaware that these were imposed by Charles III at the end of the 18th century.
Mm-hmm.
The dresses that the Spaniards made Indian females wear were copied from the regional costumes of
Extremaduran.
And
Andalusian. So Andalusia is another name for the Iberian Peninsula, which is called Spain and Portugal. It's Andalusia. I think that's like the Arabic name. But go ahead.
embossed peasant women,
Mm-hmm.
and the center part hairstyle was imposed by Viceroy Toledo.
So they weren't even dressing like people thought they were in their native costumes. It was what they made them wear. Keep reading right there. I didn't highlight that, but keep reading that.
All right. The same was not true of the consumption of coca,
Coca. Go ahead.
which already existed in Inca times.
Mm-hmm.
But coca was distributed in moderation.
So it was distributed in moderation. Go ahead.
The Inca government had a monopoly on it and only permitted its use for ritual purposes
They only permitted its use for ritual purposes. Go ahead.
or for those who worked in the mines.
The mines. We're going to get into the mines at another time. That place is a huge graveyard. They got rich off of these mines. Go ahead.
The Spaniards energetically stimulated its consumption. It was good business.
Now page. Oh yeah. Jump down to in Cusco.
All right. In Cusco, 400 Spanish merchants lived off the coca traffic.
Whoa, read that again.
In Cusco, 400 Spanish merchants lived off the coca traffic.
They lived off the coca traffic. Go ahead.
Every year, 100,000 baskets
Damn.
with 1 million kilos of coca leaf entered the Potosi silver mines.
So they had the natives working in these silver mines. They're down there dying. They were getting so sick from this that their life expectancy was 35 years old. Go ahead, but watch what they're doing. Watch what these devils are doing.
The church took a tax from the drugs.
So the church was getting their tithes off of it. They getting their tithes off of the sale of cocaine. And also, the white man's getting filthy rich off of the silver mines. This is forced labor. This man, they got their wealth by doing these things. Not only buying and selling us, but getting all the free labor. And then, so here, they're getting the workers hooked on cocaine. Go ahead.
The Inca historian Garcilaso de la Vega,
Which is the Spanish name. Go ahead.
tells us in his Comentarios Reals que Tartan del Origen de la Incas, I butchered that the bishop, canons, and other Cusco church dignitaries, thank you, got most of their income from tithes on coca.
From tithes. They got most of their income from tithes on coca. You got to be kidding me. Go ahead.
And that the transport and sale of the product enriched many
Spaniards. Go ahead.
For the few coins they received for their work, the Indians bought coca leaf instead of food.
So they were, oh my God. So they got them hooked on the coca leaf, on cocaine, and making them work because it would make you work. You know, you working off the chain. You high on coke. And then the little money they get, they buying more. You talk about destroying people. This man is an expert. Like me and Raphael be laughing all the time. He calls him the master extortionist. That's what he is. Go ahead.
Chewing it, they could, at the price of shortening their lives, better endure the deadly task imposed on them. In addition to coca, the Indians drank potent aguardiente, liquor, and their owners complained of the propagation of the maleficent vices. In 20th century Potosi, the Indians still chew coca to kill hunger in themselves. and still burn their guts with pure alcohol.
Damn, to this day. Read that last part, exile.
Exiled in their own land, condemned to an eternal exodus. Latin America's native peoples were pushed into the poorest areas.
And guess who in the rich areas? So-called white man. Just like the prophecies say. He gonna live in the fatness of the earth. He done put the whole earth into his possession. Overtaking everybody. Now, I'm gonna read this. I'm going to the Plymouth colony. This is supposedly where Thanksgiving began. This is William Bradford's History of Plymouth Plantation, 1606 to 1646. I don't know where this book is, but I do have my screenshots that I took. So I can't tell you what page this is, but it says, this spring also, those Indians that lived about their trading house there fell sick of the smallpox. So when they came over here, these Puritans, they brought smallpox with them. And died most miserably, for a sorer disease cannot befall them. They fear, now I'm at page 313, they fear it more than the plague. For usually, they that have this disease have them in abundance. Smallpox is wiping out villages, village after village. And for want of bedding and lining and other helps, they fall into a lamentable condition. As they lie on their hard mats, the pox breaking and mattering and running one into another, their skin cleaving by reason thereof to the mats they lie on. When they turn them, a whole side will flee at once. So this smallpox, like they would move their arm and all of it, the flesh would just fall off, is what he's saying. As it were, and they will be all of a gore blood, most fearful to behold, and then being very sore, what with could all other distempers, they die like rotten sheep. The condition of this people was so lamentable, and they fell down so generally of this disease, as they were in the end not able to help one another. No, not to make a fire, nor to fetch a little water to drink, nor to bury the dead, but would strive as long as they could. And when they could procure no means to make fire, they would burn the wooden trays and dishes they ate their meat in. And their very boughs, and bows and arrows, and some will crawl out on all four to get a little water, and sometimes die by the way, and not be able to get in again. But those of the English house, though at first they were afraid of the infection, yet seeing their woeful and sad condition, and hearing their pitiful cries and lamentations, they had compassion on them. For very few of them escaped. Notwithstanding, they did what they could for them to hazard of themselves. The chief Sachem himself now died, and almost all his friends and kindred. By the marvelous goodness and providence of God, not one of the English was so much as sick. Not one. Give me Deuteronomy, man. Give me Deuteronomy 28, and I think I want you to start at verse 49. But by the marvelous goodness and providence of God, not one of the English was so much as sick, or in the least measure tainted with this disease. They brought it over here and gave it to the people, man. Later on, they figured out that it was killing them, and then they came up with smallpox blankets, which was done by the army. Yeah, give me that verse. I think it's verse 49. I want you to start at.
Book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 49. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand.
And that was the Spanish, the Portuguese, the French, and the Englishmen, and they all have that same symbol, the eagle. Go ahead.
Verse 50. A nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young.
Right. And they didn't. You saw what they were doing. They were scalping even the children, and they were taking the children and selling them into slavery. Now give me 59.
Verse 59. Then the Lord will make thy plagues wonderful, and the plagues of thy seed, even great plagues, and of long continuance, and sore sicknesses of long continuance.
Right, so they brought, when they came with them, they had these diseases, and they caught it. The natives caught it. Go ahead.
Verse 60. Moreover, he will bring upon thee all the diseases of Egypt, which thou wast afraid of, and they shall cleave unto thee. Also, every sickness and every plague, which is not written in the book of this law, them will the Lord bring upon thee until thou be destroyed.
Damn, go ahead. One more verse.
Verse 62. And ye shall be left, few in numbers.
Left few in number. Whole communities was getting wiped out. If it wasn't by the sword, it was by the diseases. Go ahead.
Whereas ye were as the stars of heaven for multitude, because thou wouldest not obey the voice of the Lord thy God.
Right. All this is for being disobedient. So it's estimated that there were 70 million people over here when Columbus came, and within a matter of a few years, there was only 3.5 million. Yes. Same with the buffalo. There were 60 million buffalo in North America. When they were done, it was about 500 left. This man is the bringer of death. All right, last thing. Wikipedia. Some more astonishing news. So, Thanksgiving from Wikipedia. Thanksgiving is a national holiday celebrated on various dates in the United States, Canada, Grenada, St. Lucia, and Liberia. Wait a minute, Liberia, that's Africa. St. Lucia, Grenada, that's either in the islands or north of South America. And they're celebrating Thanksgiving. It began as a day of giving thanks and sacrifice for the blessing of the harvest and of the preceding year. Similarly named festival holidays occur in Germany and Japan. Thanksgiving is celebrated on the second Monday of October in Canada, which in Canada they did the same damn thing. Remember about a year ago, they were mad because indigenous people was burning churches up there? Because they found out about all the buried bodies that were at these schools. So what they were doing, they were stealing natives and then sending them to these like boarding schools, re-educating them, taking the educating the Indian out of them. Yeah, Elder did a class one time showing how they had pictures of the natives and they whitewashed the pictures. They made them lighter. Like they took photos and they lightened them up. And they had the originals and the ones that was lightened up. Trying to make them into white people. Man, my goodness. and on the 4th Thursday of November in the United States, and around the same part of the year in other places. Although Thanksgiving has historical roots in religious and cultural traditions, it has been celebrated as a secular holiday as well. It has roots in religious and cultural traditions. Why is it always the Christian church is associated with all these holidays that God did not ordain? Anyway, last little part. Just going on. Yeah, here we are. Last thing. This is where Thanksgiving is celebrated. It's celebrated in Canada, the United States, Australia, Brazil, Grenada, Liberia, the Netherlands, the Philippines, Rwanda, East Africa, St. Lucia, and the United States. Okay. All praises to the Most High. We're not going to keep these. We're not going to keep Thanksgiving. Give me Leviticus 23, verse 1. We have our own feast days. We're not supposed to be following none of these pagan days of our oppressor. Envy not the oppressor and learn none of his ways. Go ahead, start at verse 1.
Book of Leviticus, chapter 23 and verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, concerning the feast of the Lord.
The feasts of the Lord, not the feasts of your oppressor. Go ahead.
Which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations. Even these are my feasts.
The holy convocations is holy gatherings of the Israelites. You're not supposed to be keeping Thanksgiving, Christmas, Halloween, New Year's, St. Patrick's Day, St. Valentine's Day. You ain't supposed to be keeping that stuff. God has his own feast days. We have at least one every month. We have a new moon. While y'all are going to be celebrating Thanksgiving, we're going to be getting ready for the Feast of the Dedication. You can drop that. Give me John 10 and 22. While y'all, Lord's will, you don't keep Thanksgiving. Yep.
Book of St. John, chapter 10, verse 22. And it was at Jerusalem, the feast of dedication, and it was winter.
And the only place you're going to find out about the Feast of Dedication is in the book of Maccabees. And guess what? The Christians say it's non-authoritative, it's not God-breathed. Anything that has God's law in it is God-breathed, because the breath of God is his commandments.
Right.
And guess who else uses the Apocrypha and the Maccabees? Scholars. So irregardless of what you say in Christianity, we're going to follow the Lord. We're going to keep our feast days that were ordained for us. Just like Christ kept Feast of Dedication, we're going to keep Feast of Dedication on Sunday the 28th. Read that next verse.
Verse 23. And Jesus walked into the temple in Solomon's porch.
So he went to the temple on that feast day. He celebrated that feast day. That's what we're supposed to be doing. You so-called blacks and Hispanics, you should be keeping the Feast of the Dedication like our Lord Jesus the Christ, Yahweh Shai Mashiach, whatever you want to call him. That's what he did. And that's what we should do. We should walk in his steps. The book of 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 21, y'all. We're wrapping it up. Don't celebrate Thanksgiving. We have our own feast days that the Lord ordained.
Book of 1 Peter chapter 2 verse 21. For even hereunto were ye called, because Christ also suffered for us,
He suffered for us. He gave his life for the children of Israel. Go ahead.
leaving us an example that ye should follow his steps.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 22, who did no sin, neither was guile found in his mouth, who when he was reviled not again,
Mm-hmm.
and when he suffered, he threatened not,
Right. He took it. We supposed to take this captivity. He took it. Go ahead.
but committed himself to him that judgeth righteously,
He committed himself to the Father. Go ahead.
who with his own self bare our sins
Mhm.
in his own body
Uh-huh.
on the tree,
Mhm.
that we, being dead to sins, should live unto righteousness.
Live unto righteousness, which is keeping the commandments in the faith of Christ. Go ahead.
By whose stripes ye were healed.
Right. Just go right back to Isaiah 53. He did this for us. He's our advocate with the Father. Go ahead.
For ye were as sheep going astray,
The children of Israel are the sheep. Ye were as sheep going astray. Go ahead.
but are now returned unto the shepherd and bishop of your soul.
Right. Going right back to John 10 where we was at earlier. The sheep's supposed to hear his voice. Now, the book of Acts chapter 5 and verse 29.
The book of Acts, chapter 5 and verse 29. Then Peter and the other apostles answered and said, we ought to obey God rather than men.
Right. We ought to obey God rather than man. So keep in mind, you have the Lord's feast days, the days that he ordained for us to keep and have holy convocations. You don't have to wait for Mima and Papa and the family to come together on Thanksgiving. We have our own feast days. You don't have to do it on pagan holidays. Get together in the Lord. I'm Brother Jacob.
Brother Jeremiah.
Brother Sirach.
And with that, y'all, we say, don't keep thanks killing with your oppressor. Keep the feast of dedication. Shalom.